trying all night long just to talk.
Welcome back. Keith Short in the studio again. Sorry, I had to do my hair. I looked in the mirror. I'm like doing the news, and I'm like, "What the heck is?"
I can't relate.
Oh, that was like treating you, man.
It's great. My wife and I just got back from a bit of an adventure vacation. Had a good time. Went down to Peru and hiked the Inca Trail, and she did better than I did.
Well, honestly, you were telling me before we came on the air, and it just sounds like a really cool trip.
It is. It is. Actually, what was really interesting, a couple of things. First off, I'm 5'8". The average Peruvian's 5'5", so I was like a giant. Glorious. And what was interesting, we'd been there for about 10 days and probably ran across, 50 to 60,000 Peruvians as you're walking the cities. And so one person smoked the entire time.
No kidding.
No, that's it. Yeah. Well, it's a country that doesn't have a great income base for the individual, but also Cusco, which is the primary city near Machu Picchu, is at 10,000 feet. So it's already tough enough.
Yeah. That's why I say you had a Marlboro in that. That might be a little bit.
It's you're putting your life in jeopardy, actually. So.
Well, I'm glad to have you back. I'm glad you had a great trip. Thanks. When we had you on the first time, we kind of did an overview, just a little bit of what we're going to talk about. And now that we're getting structured, I'm really fascinated to learn more. Today, we're going to talk all about jury selection.
Okay.
And this is where I find this. Just the last couple of weeks, and just on the big 4 news channels talking about national trials and how they selected juries. I didn't realize the scientific process or just the art form that is jury selection.
Oh, yeah. And in fact, if you try enough cases, and I'm not talking the smaller, like a car accident case, you don't have to put a lot of science into a small car accident case. But tomorrow morning, I will be in another city to do mock jury panels, and I'll start at 8 a.m. They're 3 hours long. We'll do 3 in a row until 8 p.m. So my day will start at 5 tomorrow morning, and I'll get home at 10 or 11 at night. But we have people brought in, and we test theories with them. We test ideas with them. We don't tell them who we are or what side we represent. My associate will present one of the side of the case, and I'll present the other side of the case. And we'll do it with the first panel as though the defendant is going to confess liability. And so the only issue is how much the damages are. And the second panel will do it as though they're going to fight. And the third panel will just ask general questions. All of this is done so that we can select the right people for the jury. Jury selection, you hear all the time, is not about picking people. It's about eliminating people. You don't want people who are biased for either side because it spoils the outcome. So there's a lot of science that goes into it. There's a lot of background. We get a list of all the jurors a week before the trial. And then we go online and and the defendants do the same thing. They do Facebook searches. They do every kind of thing we can find out.
No kidding.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll know what job you have for the most part. We'll know, obviously your age, if you're married. Oftentimes they'll let us do questionnaires, and we'll know what radio stations you listen to.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because it tells you a little bit about a person's preferences.
See, that's what I was curious about. Do you look for just who they are as a human more so than who they are specific to this case, if that makes sense?
Yeah. It's that's actually a really interesting way to say it. Because, and here's my favorite example. I do a lot of medical malpractice and very big litigation. Historically, I don't want anyone in medicine on my jury,
right?
Because it's hard for them to give me a verdict and then go back to work, and people say, "Hey, how'd that trial you were sitting in for 2 weeks ago?" Well, I voted for the plaintiff in a medical malpractice. I mean, my wife's a nurse practitioner. My daughter's a doctor.
Right.
They've acknowledged, that would be tough. If I can tell a quick little anecdote, though, that helps explain what you were just asking me about, the person. I picked a jury down in Belleville about 4 or 5 years ago, and it's a medical malpractice case. And there were 2 or 3 nurses in my panel, and one lady was a little bit older. She was about my age, 50s to 60s, and she's a nurse. And I listened to every one of her answers carefully, and I said to my client, "I want her on our jury," which normally you would say, no. And I said, I just have a feeling this lady is older. She is in a class of sort of profession that it's rare. So Her specialty was rare, so she had a lot of power as a nurse because she could leave this job and go get 10 others tomorrow. So I liked her, and I said, you know what? She's not afraid of anyone. And my client agreed, trusted me. Well, when the trial was over and it got time to, what happens is this: at the end of the trial, the judge will say, "Did you pick a 4-person?" And the 4-person will stand up. And I said to my client, who's a pharmacist, I said, "I think if she's our 4-person, we're going to win." And my client and I don't know if people can see it, we're holding hands at the time. And the judge said, "Did you pick a 4-person?" And she stood up. My client squeezed my hand. I was like, "Oh God." Let go. And so we had asked the jurors to give us $550,000 for this terribly disfigured breast that this woman had for a surgery she'd never have had.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I got the doctor to admit that she was a terrible candidate for the surgery, but in his notes it says she's a great candidate for the surgery. So, because he knew she had lupus and she had these other things, and what's interesting is that same lady was told by a different doctor she couldn't have eye surgery because she had lupus, and she said, okay. This doctor, she told, I have lupus, and he said, go ahead and do the surgery.
Yeah.
So anyway, I asked for $550,000, and this lady stands up, and they gave the verdict, and they gave us $600,000, more than I asked for.
Wow.
And I'll never forget her response. I asked her later, I said, well, why did you rule for us? And she says, well, that guy's a lion, in words I won't say here. That doctor was. And I said, well, why'd you give us more than we asked for? Now, remember, I get a third.
Right.
And the client gets the other 2/3. And she says, she looks at me and smiles, says, it's easier to divide by 3. And I thought I'd kiss you on the mouth right now if I could. See, so my point was,
right.
Most lawyers would have stricken her from their panel.
Yeah.
And I liked her honesty. I liked her frankness. I liked her strength. And I thought, she's going to do what she thinks is right. She doesn't care what anybody says.
Well, not to cut you off, I'm just getting excited about it because you're almost picking a team. It's what it's not like you're picking a team for like kickball at recess, but this is obviously not kickball. Right. You got to have leaders. You got to have all these different characteristics of every individual.
Well, yeah, that's actually very true. And what we really find is interesting is this: if you have a person who's very quiet, and they don't say much during the jury selection, because here's how it goes: the judge brings in 40, 50 people. And we are allowed to stand up and do what's called voir dire or voir dire, depending on what part of the country you're in. It's jury. We ask them questions. Mm-hmm. And the key is looping, is what we call looping. So imagine CJ says an answer, and it's really bad for me. And I say to you, CJ, do you really think that you could be fair to this jury? I mean, I understand how you feel. We always agree. I understand how you feel. It's a pretty strong feeling. Would that make it difficult for you to be fair? And if you say, yeah, we never say, does anyone else feel that way? What we say instead is, who else feels that way? Because it assumes there are other people.
Yeah. And
a hand goes up. Now, if I can get you off of my jury, I've now looped that person to you, and that person to you, and that person to you. So, but anyway, when you have a group that's quiet, they don't say a lot, especially sleepers, people you know that are probably going to fall asleep. We don't worry much about them. You know why? They'll do whatever the leader says.
Yep.
They aren't paying attention. They don't want to be there. They don't care. They'll sit there and they won't make a single note. And in the end, more often than not, the strong voices in the room will just pull them with.
Yeah.
So you look for 3 or 4 people who you think will be fair, will judge it based on the facts, and if they have a strong enough personality and they go with you, they're going to pull everyone along.
Yeah, this is so fascinating. And just so we can just kind of get everything kind of perfect here, how are jurors? Is it just random by the county and the judge? Like, is it a lottery or how? Because I've never been called.
Yeah, I've actually been called 4 times and I've never been allowed to serve. It's oftentimes by voter registration, but not always. DMV has something to do with the driver's license, things of that nature. You know, the small communities, you're going to get pulled a lot of times.
Is age ever a factor dependent on the case? Like, are you going to see an 18-year-old get pulled to be a juror on a homicide case very often?
Well, I can't say because I don't do criminal.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, that's okay. But in my cases, you know, it really is. It's a great question. What we have found with the younger generation is they're oftentimes not terribly engaged until they become engaged. And when they become engaged, then they're fully engaged. So if you get a younger, and that's, you know, I don't even think it's this generation. I think it's that age.
Yeah.
18 to 22. They often have a difficult time, relating to an older person who's had a spinal fusion because they're healthy, and they just don't have much interest. But once they become engaged, you get a 22-year-old who cares, or 19, they will, they're the ones who lead protests. They will fight. So it's really, your earlier question was the best one, which is it more person-driven or is it more issue-driven? It's person-driven for me. I don't know how other people think.
Well, to me, this is why I just find this it's so interesting to see the breakdown of this, because it all goes into that overall success of a trial. It's going to be successful or not successful, it seems like, based on just that. And you were talking about just these mock jury panels and these exercises. How long does it take to plan those? How do you even find the people to come together for that? That's a very fascinating process.
Yeah, what we do is, here's the first thing I tell people. There's a formal and an informal way of doing it. The formal one is you tend to hire a jury consultant or someone who helps you select people. Sometimes they're obtained through temp agencies. And therefore you can tell the temp agency, I need X number of women, X number of men, X number of this race, X number of this race. You can tell them what you want.
Okay.
And then you also look at the demographic. Like a case I'm going to be trying is in a rural community. I need farmers. I need people who work in agriculture. I need people who work in that kind of environment. It doesn't do me any good to get a bunch of academics in St. Louis if my trial is going to be in Union County, my home county,
right,
which is a southern county. So anyway, you can have a juror consultant help you do those things, or what we've done lots of times is we just go on Facebook and we say, hey, I'm going to do this on a Tuesday. There'll be lunch served. You got to sign a non-disclosure. We get 20, 30 people volunteer all the time.
No kidding.
And the best part is, the first thing we say is this: you're not going to do me or justice or this case or even the defendant any good unless you tell us the absolute truth. So if you don't like it, just say, I don't like it. I don't like your person. I don't trust your person. And then we get a feeling for how. Can I tell you one quick
Please.
anecdote?
No, we have time. We have tons of time today.
I can't remember how much time we have.
Yeah, that's why I gave you the night. We don't have anybody coming on in the night, so you're good.
Okay, here's an example, although it just jumped right out of my mind. Oh, I know what it is. Okay, so we did a mock trial in a case that we got millions of dollars for earlier this year, January, for this lady who I can't, because we have a non-disclosure agreement, I can't say with too many details. But what happened to this lady will kill her in time, and she's just waiting for it to happen. So what I did was, my woman was just wonderful, and she's sweet, and she's a little older than me, and the whole thing came down to how information was given to her. But I had 20 people in my conference room, all the chairs set up, and I brought my client in, and I pretended to be the defense lawyer, and I very gently cross-examined. So at the beginning of the case, I told the 20 people, and I said, how many people think the plaintiff should win? Every hand went up after I did like a 10-minute introduction. Then I brought my client in, and I gently cross-examined her for 20 minutes, and then had her leave the room. I turned to the group. I said, how many people think we should win now? 8 hands went up.
Oh.
I lost 12 of them.
Within 20 minutes?
Within 20 minutes of a gentle cross-examination of her. But then I brought the client back in, and I did a reform. I crossed her like as though the plaintiff again, and I had her explain everything. And all of a sudden, it went back to 19th. Oh,
okay.
In a matter, yeah. And so what happened was my client was very upset. I said, no, this is a good thing. We need to know why they don't like our case. And then we can work on that. We can plug those holes. So even those people knew who I was. They knew who I represented. I had a bunch of people who were really frank with me. I had a lawyer tell me one time, or not a lawyer, a juror tell me one time, he said, Mr. Short, I think you're a great lawyer, but your case sucks. That's what he said.
Wow.
And look, you need to hear that. Because there'll be jurors who think exactly that.
Well, and see, this is what I was going to ask you, too, because as you're doing these exercises and you're getting prepared, to me, it's like an athlete getting ready for a game, because and if you're a baseball player and all of a sudden the slider's giving you fits and you haven't gotten a hit in 3 months be off a slider, do you ever have those moments where, man, something isn't clicking in these exercises, something isn't clicking in these mock-ups, and you're at trial now, and do you ever have those kind of, let's just weather the storm and let's see where we're at here?
Yeah, I had a paralegal one time. Her name was Dawn, and she was brilliant. COVID kind of interfered with that situation, but What I liked about Dawn was she was also really honest with me. And I remember one time we were in a trial, and the trial was like a week long. And I was sitting in her office and said, "Boy, I sucked today." And she said, "Yeah, you did."
That away, Don.
Yeah, well, but that's the whole point.
Yeah.
Is she was comfortable enough to tell him.
You have to be.
Which was honest and true and good. And we worked through it, and boy, and the next day it was, so imagine it like a baseball player. I kind of went 1 for 5 that day, and the next day we went 4 for 5. You're not going to have perfect days. I've had jury selection processes where I just don't feel like I connect with anyone. If you try enough cases, that's going to happen.
Well, and see, that's because you have at this point, and it's almost, you get a feel for it or a sense I could see in a room. Let's do this. Let's take a quick break. I want to come back and keep talking. This has just been awesome. I love talking jury selection. I want to talk a little bit more about what the other side looks at, too, and then we'll come back and circle back to it. 9:35, a little bit of change. Keith Short in the studio. He's here back with us next. With over 20 years of experience, Wilson's Tree Service has the expertise to handle all of your tree care needs. Licensed and fully insured, their team of experts are dedicated to providing reliable service. Plus, with a 24-hour emergency service line, Wilson's will always be there for you. Don't risk tackling that timber by yourself. Trust the local professionals at Wilson's Tree Service. Visit treeservicealtonil.org to get started today.
Discover Del Mar Public House, located in Godfrey's historic Clifton Schoolhouse. Enjoy bold flavors like homemade falafel, fish and chips, and rotating pasta favorites. Relax with local beers, half-price wine bottles, and summer poutine nights. The only thing missing is you. Open Wednesday through Sunday. Del Mar Public House, where great food, drinks, and friends come together. DelMarPublicHouse.com.
Do you need to declutter your space? Time to call me, the Queen of Junk. Since 1993, we have grown to be the leader in residential, commercial, and property management junk removal. At Sparks Junk Removal, we are eco-friendly. We recycle, donate, or repurpose items back into our community. Trash is our last resort to the landfill. Plus, with our all-inclusive service, our crews handle everything from labor to lifting and landfill fees. Give us a call or visit our website, sparksjunkremoval.net, to reclaim your space today.
When I got in the car accident at the ER, they gave me a prescription of hydrocodone. And over time, it took more medication to mask the pain. I moved over to drug seeking and found heroin, fentanyl. I went to the Centerstone rehab facility, and it was the best decision I ever made in my life. I have my own car. I have a job. There's nothing holding me back anymore.
When you need a project done right, on budget and on time, trust Gillahan Concrete. Gillahan handles every kind of project, big and small. Commercial, industrial, residential, from room additions and garages to patios, driveways, and more. Gillahan brings quality and experience to every job. Family owned with over 30 years of service to our community. Call today at 618-781-3914 or visit GillahanConcrete.com.
Accidents happen in a heartbeat, but lives change forever. Whether it's a car crash, workplace injury, medical malpractice, or wrongful death, you don't have to face the consequences alone. Keith Short and Associates brings over 33 years of experience and a reputation for fighting fiercely for your rights. For relentless representation that you can trust, call Keith Short and Associates at 618-254-0055 today for a free consultation. You're listening to Our Daily Show with CJ Naselli on RiverBender.com.
You know you could get a clue, and baby you're so strong. You know you could have been a school food. Well, you could have been
Oh, see, look at that, my camera. Come back here. Okay. Only had the same setup for 3 years now. Back with Keith Short. So this is so silly of me, Keith, but yeah. I was, don't laugh at me. I was watching My Cousin Vinny yesterday. Yeah. And there's something about just they show the process, and obviously it doesn't work that way.
Oh, you'd be surprised.
Are you kidding me? Okay.
No, lawyers will tell you, many lawyers, that in the Lincoln Lawyer TV show, are actually surprisingly close.
No kidding.
Yeah. I've had, like, you know the part where Vinny walks around, he does this.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I've knelt down and I've done all those dramatic. Sure, of course we have.
This is fantastic, man. Well, getting back into the jury side of things, whenever you're picking your jury, I'm sure that you have to also think for the other side of things too, and look at what they're looking for their team.
Right. You know, actually, the thing that is most interesting about that is because I work in a very niche environment. There's not many lawyers who do medical malpractice. And therefore, on the defense side, it's fairly niche. We see the same guys often. And there are some lawyers who I have to prepare because I know that they're really good at connecting with jurors.
Yeah.
So I have to think about how they approach it. I also have to, here's an example. I had a case one time where there were some fairly graphic photos of how terrible this ended up. I talked to a friend about my opponent. My friend said, I've tried a case against him. He's going to try to get those barred before, or he'll try to show them in the voir dire. He'll want to show them to the juror selection and see how many people go, oh, God, that's horrible.
So he can pop them.
So he can pop them. And so I truthfully wouldn't have thought to file a motion to bar him from doing that before we even got to the jury selection. But because I'm constantly afraid of making a mistake, I always check with my friends, and I ask my wife, and I go over and over and over to this stuff because, you know, I think insecurity makes for a really good trial lawyer. You should. I mean, you have to have the bravery to go out there and say, I'm going to do this, and no one will ever tell that I'm nervous.
Yeah.
But you can't be so certain that you don't ask 17 different people, am I right or am I wrong? And people who tell you you're wrong. So anyway, my friend told me, watch out for Tim. He'll try to. Tim's a great guy. He's a defense lawyer, but he's smart. And I filed the motion, and sure enough, he was prepared to show the jurors because he wanted to knock out all those people who would be sympathetic to that terrible injury. And the judge went along with me. He said, no, we're not doing that.
This is incredible. And see, this is where it's about the comfortability. You know, if you want to stay in the middle lane, that's when those things happen, and you lose those opportunities 100%.
Right. You know, I was going to actually tell you today, I sent it to a friend. I have my phone here.
Yeah.
There's an article today in the Wall Street Journal. I don't read the Wall Street Journal. It popped up on Facebook. There's an article today about trial lawyers are now leaving these big, massive firms where there's 1,000 lawyers to start their own firms of just niche trial lawyers because in those firms with 1,000 lawyers, 950 have never tried a case.
Yep.
And yet they're making all the big money because they push contracts and they do all these other things. And the trial lawyers think, well, we're going to leave, and if you need us, you're going to have to pay us.
Yep.
And that's happening in the big firms.
I honestly, I just did a quick. This is being talked about everywhere now. It kind of blew up overnight.
Oh.
Yeah, like the Wall Street put it out there, and then now it's getting picked up by multiple syndications and talking about this.
Well, I know this is really off topic, but there's a big scare running through the legal industry right now about AI.
That's interesting.
And AI is helping us with jury selection, by the way. In fact, what happens is you can put into AI, legal-based AI closed-loop programs sometimes. I prefer those as opposed to open-loop. Closed-loop ones only draw law that's confirmed to have been written. As an open-loop one can go out there and find somebody who wrote a theoretical case.
Right.
And pull it like it's a real case. So anyway, the fear is that AI is going to wipe out a lot of lawyers, and it is. It absolutely is, because the other day I asked my AI program to write me a series of interrogatories on a fairly benign case, and I got 30 of them that were brilliant in a matter of 2 minutes, and it would have taken an associate, a day.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, what I do, like I told my wife about all this. AI can't walk into a courtroom,
right?
And neither can 98% of these other lawyers, and do it very effectively. And we do it effectively because it's me and it's Andrew and it's Holly and it's a team of 8 or 9 people. So.
Yeah, well, and see, that's a great point. It's because AI is, everyone's going, well, it's going to take jobs. Well, it's going to take away some of the grunt work, and some of the harder things that nobody wanted to do anyway or thought to do. But you aren't going to take the lawyer out of the courtroom. You can't. And you can't take the personality off of a show. Spotify's trying, but they still can't. Now, with that being said, we're almost at the end of this. There's a lot of folks that want to know, Keith, I got a vacation coming up this weekend, man. How do I get out of this jury?
Yeah, actually, I wrote down, the only thing I wrote down coming in here were one of the biggest excuses.
I figured let's end on a good note.
Yeah. And, here's the ones we always hear. Here's an example. I try not to set a trial during harvest season because we have a lot of farmers around here. Yeah, and I just don't want them angry, and I don't blame them. Look, this is my time. I can't not be here. We try not to do it during times that like Christmas. We don't do it like that. The biggest ones that the people legitimately get out from are if they're a sole earner for their family, and if they don't work, they don't get paid. That becomes really problematic for the judges. Now, there are a lot of judges who say, "I'm sorry, but I can't. I'll have to let half the people go." Single parents, who don't have child care. Anyone who's got a surgery coming up will get out. Anyone who has a medication that makes it difficult for them to pay attention or stay awake. But, you'd be shocked. If you have a vacation and the judge says it's prepaid and you say, yeah, I've already bought my ticket, you're probably going to go.
Yeah.
You're probably going to walk. Because we don't want people who are angry about being there.
Or distracted because they got a surgery coming up or they got to pick up the kid in an hour or figure it out. Very fast. Okay, one final one. What is the best excuse you've ever heard someone raise their hand and go, listen, I just don't want to be here?
The best excuse I have ever heard in a trial is my own. And here's why. It wasn't that I didn't want to be there, but I got called to a vehicular homicide case in Union County, Illinois. And when I was practicing down in Carbondale, I lived in Union County. And a judge called me in and says, is there anybody who doesn't think they should be here? And I raised my hand. And first off, the judge was married to my niece. So the question is, do you know anybody in the case? The judge was married to my niece. The man who got killed, I went to church with.
Oh, no.
The defense lawyer for the defendant was my ex-wife's lawyer in our divorce. And I said, Judge, I know everybody in this case. And he said, go away. But typically, yeah, that's it. Or they're not usually outrageous. They're usually pretty legit.
Right. And well, Keith, thanks so much for stopping by. I know we got to keep moving here, but coming up next month, we're going to be talking about medical malpractice on the two states, the Illinois side versus Missouri.
Okay.
And then we're going to wrap up the month with legal myths and misunderstandings. So that'll be fun. Thanks for your time.
Oh, happy to be here. Thank you.
Take a quick break. We'll come back with more Daily Show on this Friday next.